All right, good morning. We'll call the City Council workshop to order. And we got the budget presentation today, and it's going to be over the operating budget for park, recreation, and libraries, and health department operations. Who's going to, before we get started, if there happens to be anybody watching, the city manager and I have already had a phone conversation this morning, and we're aware of the weather, and he and Billy, I think, are communicating, and we're aware of it, keeping an eye on it. So don't think we're just going to let it slip up on us. Mr. Manager, you want to make a comment about that?
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everybody. Right, so I did, we've been watching the weather since Monday. We know there's two and now a third storm, kind of still early in their developmental stages, but our staff is saying it's a little too soon to tell the impact area, and we just will continue to monitor. We know how to respond to hurricanes. We have a great team, and we'll continue to do what we do great as well, as communicate to the public. So we'll keep everybody informed. Today at 1 o'clock, Billy Delgado and myself and others will do a weather update, and I'll provide the mayor and council with the update that we get at that time.
All right, super. Well, Ms. Worth, do you want to call the roll before we get started?
Yes, sir. Mayor Joe McComb.
Here.
Council members Roland Barrera is absent. Rudy Garza.
Here.
Paulette Guajardo.
Present.
Gil Hernandez.
Here.
Michael Hunter is absent. Ben Molina.
Present.
Everett Roy is absent. Greg Smith.
Here.
City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Here.
City Attorney Miles Risley. Mayor and council, a quorum of the council and the required charter officers are present to conduct the meeting.
All right.
Yeah, I'll just do a quick introduction. So this is our third work session, mayor and council, and last night we finished our fifth community engagement session via WebEx, our virtual ones. And we're getting the final tally from last night, but prior to last night's event, we had over 600 people participate. So we probably had close to 200 with all means of watching last night. So that's real good turnout for our community. We had a lot of good comments from the community on the budget, on city services, and just on our city in general. So I think that's real good given our conditions where it's still tough to meet out there because of COVID-19. So we have today's work session, and then next Thursday will be our final budget work session. And next Thursday we'll focus on our visitor industries to include our hotel occupancy tax-funded entities. Today's focus is on some of our neighborhood-related services like parks and recreation, libraries, and then our health department is here as well. So we'll continue to move forward. After this week, for the mayor and council, things will get a little easier, at least with the budget. We have been doing 3-4 events each week, so next week will slow down a little bit. Okay, so we're going to turn it over to Tracy Cantu, our interim parks director, who will take us through our first departmental briefing.
As Peter said, I'm Tracy Cantu. I am serving as the interim director of Parks and Recreation. Being this is just my third week on the job, I have brought reinforcements with me, so I will lead us through the presentation, and then once we get to the question and answer session, I have Assistant Directors Becky Perrin, Joe Johnson, and our Finance and Resource Superintendent with us as well. So I'll get started. So the Parks and Recreation, our mission statement is to manage the park system. Next slide, please. Manage the park system and to offer recreational, social, cultural activities to residents. You see some illustrations there. These are our photos from prior to COVID-19. Next slide. About the Parks and Recreation Department. We maintain 10 miles of beaches, which is our 8 Gulf beaches, our 2 Bay beaches. We have had 34 water rescues. This season we've had preventable 2,033 incidents and 9,210 general contacts. We manage 189 parks, and that is 1,787 total acres. Parks Department is one of 16 accredited agencies through with the CAPRA accreditation, one of 16 in Texas, one of 171 in the United States. This accreditation is awarded by the National Recreation and Park Association, and CAPRA is the only national accreditation of park and recreation agencies And this is a valuable measure of the city's overall quality of operation, management, and service to the community. Achieving the CAPRA accreditation is the best way to demonstrate that our Parks Department and staff provide the community with the highest level of service. Next slide.
And Tracy, while they're turning that slide, can we just recap? So unfortunately, every life is important on our beaches, but this summer, and I know the beaches were closed to vehicles a little bit more than last summer, we had a significant reduction in lives lost at the beach, right? Was it one so far?
Yes, there was only one death at our beaches this summer, so that, it never want to have anything happen, but there was a reduction from previous years.
Yeah, we had at least 8, maybe 9 this last summer, right? So
Yes.
the staff's doing a great job. They had a lot of, as you can see here, preventables and rescues that helped to alleviate those. So we want to congratulate them.
Thank you. Okay, this next slide is our organizational chart. As I mentioned, we have 2 assistant directors. We have our superintendents, and that filters out to our field staff, management as well. Next slide. Our fiscal year 2020 achievements are that we designed in the installation of the newly commissioned splash pads at Bill Witt, Lindell, and Salinas Parks. We also provided 238,140 meals to our senior community. I wanted to add with that through our COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen an increase in daily meal service from what is normally 300 meals per day to between 1,400 and 1,600 meals each day. Our Meals on Wheels delivers meals 5 days a week, and on Fridays they include 2 additional frozen meals to cover Saturdays and Sundays for those recipients of the program. Our senior centers are open Monday through Friday, and anyone is eligible for a meal with daily registration. We also transitioned all of our parks to a 7 to 14-day mowing schedule. Previously, we had some parks that were on a 21-day or a 30-day schedule, so we have improved that service to make sure that our parks are maintained more frequently. We have also had the installation of 14 new playgrounds throughout the park system, which is purchased through grant funding. Next slide. Our performance measures. Our annual total parks mowed for 2019, and then the estimated for this year is 33,031. Our annual number of beach parking permits sold. Last year, we are seeing a decrease this year at 1,780,000. However, just to also reiterate that with COVID, that has made an impact to the number of beach parking permits that we've sold. However, the months where we were open, we saw a significant increase in those months, and so that actually has us trending for the year with over 3,000 additional parking permits sold than where we were at the same time last year. So also our recreational program numbers, we've seen a decrease, and again, that is due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We are currently estimated at 27,116 versus last year at nearly 70,000. And our annual drop-in numbers has also been impacted by COVID-19, and what we mean by drop-ins are when we have a class, someone who has not registered for that class, but they show up at the door, they attend that. Our attendance at our recreational programming, such as our leagues, we have a head count of all of the participants who come in to watch those events, and also anyone who attends those events again and shows up at the door. So those numbers have been impacted by COVID-19. Let's see. Next slide. Our services, we have these combined into 3 primary categories, which are our parks, our beaches, and recreation. And that accounts for, we have 321 employees total. Those are full-time. That number does fluctuate throughout the season because we do have part-time and seasonal employees as well. But this gives you an illustration of our 3 main services. Next slide. So the proposed budget for 2021 is $27 million, and that comes out of our general fund, which is 18.6. Our grant funding, 2.4. Our enterprise, 500,000, and special revenue fund at 5.9 million. This is a reduction from last year, which was 20.3. Our park operation, including tourist district construction, has been reduced their budgets by 881,366. Our latchkey budget is also reduced by 195,000 from the previous year. Community centers reduced their budgets by $451,012. Beach operations reduced their budgets by approximately $240,000. The hot fund was reduced by $200,000, and therefore we will not be funding the Arts and Cultural Commission's grant program this year, which is $200,000 annually. Community Enrichment Fund was appropriated $1.9 million for projects last year, and this time the budget is left with an unencumbered amount of $400,000, which will carry forward. We also wanted to indicate in this slide our number of FTEs, and the difference, the variance in that is due to mowing services that our storm drainage mowing has been shifted over to stormwater, and so those FTEs have also moved over to that service. Next slide. And the proposed general fund is $18.6 million. So that comes from our hot funds, which is 2.3, our beach parking permits, 900,000, program fees and rentals, 3.7 million, general resources at 11.7. So that, and it shows our three main services and how they are supported. Next slide. The proposed enterprise fund, that is our golf course capital and maintenance at $500,000. There's two revenue sources, the reserves at $200,000 and the golf fund at $300,000. Next slide. Proposed special revenue funds is at $5.9 million. That is our hot funds, which supports beach operations and park operations. Our shot funds, which is state hotel tax beach operations. Our visitors facilities fund funds our park operations, and then we have our community enrichment funds, which supports our projects at our area parks. Proposed grant funds, next slide please, is $2.4 million. Those come from our Texas Department of Agriculture, the Coastal Bend Council of Governments, Texas Department of Aging and Disability, Managed Care Contractors, Corporation for National and Community Service, and Texas Department of Protective Services. And so these fund our senior feeding programs, our summer feeding programs. However, this year we did not utilize the summer feeding program with our children because CCISD also receives this same grant, and they continued their services. We also received some funding through the CARES Act and CDBG to continue our Meals on Wheels program this year as well throughout the COVID pandemic. Next slide. Our FY 2021 enhancements in general fund, we have an increase in chemicals and maintenance for our newly commissioned splash pads. Those are Bill Witt, Lindale, and Salinas Park for a total of $37,440. Next slide. We also have funding from the SHOT Fund for beach operation vehicles and equipment. It totals $300,000. Next slide. Our proposed capital budget will include the Cole Park rebuild, which is just over $8 million. The funding sources for that project include the Community Enrichment Fund at $1.25 million, the GO bonds at $1.5 million, grants of $143,000, and Type B funding at $5.25 million. Additional proposed capital budget improvements are the Heritage Park improvements at just over $200,000, recreation center improvements at $400,557, almost. So we also have our Greenwood Sport Rehabilitation at $316,950 with additional funding source from Bond 18. Next slide.
Could we kind of
Yes, sir.
get a status of where we are on that pier?
Yeah, the Cole Park Pier.
Yeah, where
Yeah,
are we exactly?
so
I know we're
where-
making progress,
right.
just kind of where are we?
Yes, sir. So The design is about 20% done, the design, but the full design, we've already hired the firm, council approved the contracts, it's Jacobs. So the design will be done by October of this year. The demolition design, the engineering mechanics behind demolishing it, is 90% complete. And we'll demolish the pier closer to the fall, winter timeframe. And then construction is anticipated to begin in January of 2022. And it'll last for several months with a completion date of around June. And so what we've been telling the community and the council is that by July next year, we'll have a brand new pier to walk on to and fish from. So the design's underway, and it's about 25% complete. It'll be done later this fall. Demolition takes place November, December. The mechanics of how to do it is 90% done. And then construction, we have to go out for a bid on the construction contract. And so there'll be a procurement process with an award in December by council. And then construction will begin in January. You can see the funding allocated in that slide. We still have to work with the Type B board, but we do have monies available and identified. And the design looks real nice. We took into consideration, I don't know if Councilman Molina wants to add, but we've had a lot of community input on the design and what they wanted to add and not, what we want to keep and maybe add. So one thing that you'll see in the design renderings is a more prominent approach. So there's a nice arch treatment that lets you know you're about to get onto the pier. There's also more shade on the pier itself, and not so much where it's going to interfere with the casting of a line, but there's shade where we're putting additional seating. That was another request, was have areas where you can sit more and just enjoy. You don't have to fish necessarily. And so those seating areas have shade covers. The design or the footprint will be pretty close to what we have today. That way we don't have to get new permits from the federal government. And we're looking at the height. That's been a concern raised by several longtime folks that live here. They said the waves tend to lap the bottom of the pier now, and we saw that especially with Hannah. And so we're going to check, do we have to raise it a little bit to keep it out of the flood, the wave zone area, wave action area. Councilman Molina, do you want to add anything to that? I know you've been...
Yeah, you know, this is something that I've been working on personally for a long time. And Peter, I want to thank you and the staff for just your diligence in it. You know, we did get the community involved. We got some public engagement. A lot of the issues that they brought up were shade and seating, fish cleaning stations, stuff like that. And we're able to incorporate a lot of that. But no, it's going to be a good thing, and you know, we've got the funding sources identified. It's going to be a wonderful amenity to the community, and I really appreciate the city staffs and the council support on this project. It's going to be good for everybody.
Mr. Garza?
Yeah, I am finished with the presentation. So is there any questions?
Just a couple of questions. I'm going to start since we're on the pier. I know that community enrichment funds have to be spent in areas that are closer to whatever development was there that forgave any kind of park space. So I guess my recollection is the Bay Vista apartments there on Park or Furman, and then the Cosmopolitan, I guess the community enrichment funds. I just want to make sure that the community enrichment funds are from funds that should have been used and dedicated in that area. And that's, for me, that's a great use of community enrichment funds. So again, I like the project. I'm happy to see it go forward. I just want to make sure that we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's so that we don't have developers come up and say we're using community enrichment funds from Southside projects for Cole Park Pier.
Correct, council member. As you know, there's two separate funds in the enrichment. There's the restricted and the unrestricted. We utilized all of the restricted possible for this particular project.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Councilman, we met with Keith Selman and Michael Rodriguez. We met to go over that exact question to see it's a complex fund, that community enrichment fund, and so we looked at all the different pots and the available balances. So what Keith said is, I just want to confirm that.
Yeah, the difficulty in District 2 is that it's completely built out. There's not going to be any new big developments or subdivisions that are going to be done and District 2. So any funds that are put in the community enrichment group is going to have to come from reinvestment in older areas that might allow us to be able to. But this is a great use of those community enrichment funds, in my opinion. Okay, I've got a couple other questions real quick, and I'll just go through them real quick. We had an increase in the meals that we're providing to the aged, and I was just wondering where the funding was coming from in order to be able to cover the increase in the meals that we're providing. It's great, it's a service that's needed. They can't do a whole lot except, eat at home. So I was just curious as to where the funding was coming from for the
Yes,
meals.
we have received additional funding through the CARES Act
Okay.
and also a grant from CDBG that has supported that effort.
Okay.
And so we are using those funds currently to support the additional meals.
Perfect, okay. Then I see there's a reduction, I know it's COVID-19 related, in the drop-in, the people that come and drop into our recreational programming. That's on page 6 of your slide.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the question that I've got is that if we could just review, make sure that we haven't dropped off on our outreach, so that when we do get out of this COVID-19, that we continue the outreach that we had previous to the drop-off.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Okay.
I could let Becky Perrin speak on that a little bit and explain the efforts that she and her staff have continued doing through this.
It'd be great to be able to hear her comments on how we're going to move forward.
Good morning, Becky Perrin, Assistant Director for Parks and Recreation. We have continued efforts, even though our recreation centers have been closed. We have been doing a lot of social media and bringing the kids into activities, reading, sign language. So we're continuing to offer programming. They're just not coming to our sites. We are moving forward with our athletic programs for our youth, but making sure that we're implementing social distancing procedures.
Okay. And then the last question I've got is, second to last question, I'm sorry. On page 7, when we talked about the FTEs, I know that some of our FTEs were related to the latchkey programs, and I didn't think we were doing the latchkey programs because of social distancing.
We are gearing up for latchkey.
Okay, but what have we been doing with the employees while we've been, so to speak?
Those employees are seasonal. We
Okay.
bring in latchkey, and we changed the name. It's no longer latchkey. It's
Okay.
after our Kid
It's
Power.
okay.
And so we brought it up to current names. Those staff are hired seasonally.
Okay,
So when we ceased providing services in the schools, then our staff were not rehired for the summer.
Okay.
We brought on exactly how many we needed according to our license per square foot for each child in the buildings that we utilized.
Okay, great, good job. And the last, we haven't seen in a long time a presentation from our golf group, the contractor that handles our golf courses. I guess it's Foresight, right? And I was just wondering how we were doing with the facilities. I saw that there's some money in there for capital improvements in the golf courses that are municipally owned, that are run by Foresight. And I was just wondering,
You
is
know
there a
what?
way to
Yeah,
get?
can I answer that? So,
Sure.
just before COVID broke, I was gonna do a site tour to meet the operators and tour the courses, because I believe that firm's doing a great job. And then COVID hit, so we didn't do it. But maybe we can bring a presentation to council during one of our council meetings, have Foresight come in, give us an update on their business plan. We can give you an update on our contract that we have with them.
It would be great if maybe we could have a conversation with, you could have a conversation with them related to what they might be able to do to enhance, I guess, the golf participation. I don't play
Yeah.
golf, but a lot of people that I know do.
Well, during the,
And Top Golf has been offered in other communities. I'm just wondering if that's something that Foresight might be able to
okay.
partner with and bring somebody.
Yeah, we
to-
can talk to them about that, any future
Okay.
plans. During the pandemic, the courses kind of stayed open, I think, pretty much. There may have been a day or two where they may have thought they were closed, but they were able to stay open, and they did some different protocol. But let's get them in to see council, because we're fortunate to have a great operator. It could be a lot of work and a lot of lost money and a lot of poor greens maintained, but I think we have the opposite. We have a great company, a good business model, the keeping rates low, and the courses look great. I don't get on them, but I see them from the distance. So let's bring them in, because they're a good partner, and we need to make sure we recognize those partners in our community.
Okay, great.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you very much, everybody.
Mr. Hernandez?
Yeah, thank you. Real quick question, on your organizational charts, you didn't have an aquatics manager there. Who's your aquatics manager?
Yeah, Caleb Harris is our
Caleb?
aquatics, yes.
Okay. And I also noticed there was no aquatics, anything in your CIP. Are you not planning any capital improvements to any of the swimming pools?
Not this year.
Okay, there's not even anything in future years.
There are budget initiatives that were submitted for the capital.
Can you speak at the mic, please, so everybody can hear you?
There were budget initiatives that were submitted for future capital improvement programs. We spent quite a few dollars on Greenwood Pool this year. And then we got the splash pads that we need to maintain with the chemicals and the maintenance. The actual maintenance is not going to be very much. A lot of that money is the chemicals. There are bond projects for West Scoot Pool, and also, as you know, the design for the Bill Witt that we hope can get passed for bond 2020.
Right, I would hope that'd be reflected in your CIP at some point as to what you're actually going to be doing. Right now, there's nothing here that says anything about pools or aquatics in any way. Even if it's something that we've already done, we need to make sure it's captured or in the process of being done. It's just not there. Nothing's there. Also, I noticed you just had a minor increase in the maintenance for your aquatics program. I think it went up by $5,000 on maintenance and repairs and building. But you also have a charge going over to an allocation of building maintenance of $137,000. Can you kind of give an idea of what services you get from facilities?
They support us. We put in work orders. They send out somebody to look at the problem. Most of the time, they hire a contractor to come out and fix the problem. They mostly electrical and plumbing when it comes to pools.
Okay. And this is probably on a personal side, I think swimming is a very important part for a city, especially a coastal community, to make sure that we have the facilities and the training aspect of it. We've had some high-profile drownings, and I know we're down, but, we want to make sure that we have a robust learn-to-swim program and the facilities to be able to manage that. Just as a safety precaution for, our citizens, it's important, especially for a coastal community. I don't think we're paying enough attention to it specifically. I hope that we would do a little bit more. It wasn't even mentioned in your presentation.
It falls under beach operations. Aquatics does. So it's basically a subcategory of beach operations.
Not mentioned.
Yeah, I understand. It's a great point. We have done a lot of stuff this year with aquatics. The programs did fall by the wayside in the past, and so did the facilities. But our aquatics manager, Caleb, he came from the Oso Preserve, and he's just amazing. And we've hired 2 new pool mechanics who are very dedicated, and we're slowly bringing the facilities back up to where they should be. I don't know if you've gone by Greenwood this year, but we basically remodeled that entire pool, new epoxy floors in the restrooms. We painted. A lot of that stuff was done in-house with our own staff. We just got through filling all the joints with the compound, fixed the big climber there with the slides. We did a lot of work. Still a lot of work needs to be done. I'd like to get a new diving board back there if we can, but it's priorities. We got to shift priorities and funds where we have to.
I understand. Okay, the other question I have is the latchkey program. You took it down a little bit, but I don't know are you going to get the kind of participation considering this from the beginning part of the year with COVID-19? I mean, I know it's a significant amount of money that brings income to your department. Are you really I mean, is that really realistic in terms of how much you're going to get, considering you got $1 million less in last year's or this year's?
We're optimistic.
I would say that, yeah.
You're right. It does depend a lot on the ability that we have to get back into the schools. And we are ready. We are right now engaging in not a sign up, but a "Are you interested?" Is what we've put out to the media to see how many families are going to be needing the services again. We've been pleasantly surprised that CCISD continues to report that they have a number that's going to be staying home, but they also have a large number that's going to be coming back. So we are putting forth all of our efforts to be able to offer as many family services as that we can. We do realize that with the pandemic, we are at a deficit that we're working hard to make up.
Okay, I bring this up because I actually utilize this service. I have
It's
a
a great
son-
service.
I have a son that's in elementary, at Luther Jones Elementary, and we used this last year up until we couldn't, right? And so I want to see how it gauges in terms of what kind of usage it is, because I'm hearing about 50% of the kids aren't going to show up to school.
That's what we're hearing also.
Yeah, and so, I mean, like I said, this number is very optimistic in terms of how you're budgeting it. I would actually probably check with CCISD and see if you can really look at that number, because I don't know if you're going to be able to get to that number.
Well, we're in constant contact with them and Cal Allen, because those are the two
Right.
districts that we're in. So we're in contact with them weekly.
Is there any chance to expand it to other school districts?
Yes, we're also looking at that. We are trying to cultivate if Flower Bluff has an interest for us to come back. We know that they have a program at London ISD. We would like to provide services there if that's possible, but we are definitely always looking for additional schools and school districts to add to our list.
Okay, thank you. And last thing on the aquatics, this is something on there. You know, I was a lifeguard as a high school. I've actually seen somebody drown or show up when somebody had drowned on this. It's not a pretty sight, and it is something that one of the reasons why I'm passionate about it. If you can save a life, we had there's a young man that died in a lake up by Kitty Hawk. Are you familiar with that area? There's a lake out there. The mother was so distraught she committed suicide about a year later. As much as I kind of a push on swimming, and I have my own personal reasons for that, it's beyond that, and that's why I push on that. So please, put some more consideration into some of the programs there. We want people to learn how to swim and use our facilities. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mayor.
Mayor, I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, is Becky up there? I'm sorry, I'm not seeing.
She is now.
Okay, hi, Becky.
Hey.
Quick question on, we were talking about outreach earlier, which I think is very important. That was a great question. But along the same lines, are we, in regards to our senior centers, are we doing any outreach with them? I know there's a lot of people, of our seniors that are no longer able to, spend their days or visit the centers. So are we keeping in touch with them?
Yes, we are. We are making phone calls weekly so that we can do wellness checks on them, check up on them, wish them happy birthday.
Oh, good.
We've had some drive-throughs where we've done some celebrating. So we have kept in contact. We do, along with our youth, we have provided social media activities. There's been several different times that we have put packages together and sent packages to our seniors through our curbside services, where they can color and just some activities that they can do at home so that they're keeping busy. So
Good.
we're actually, this week, we've been talking about hosting a really large bingo game on
Yeah.
like a WebEx just to keep the seniors involved. It's very important that they have that contact.
Right,
with
right. No,
them.
that's wonderful. That's really good. That's good to hear. Let's see, the other question I had was probably for Tracy. I just didn't catch this info on slide number 5, Tracy. You had mentioned that, or you had said that, I guess we're going to a 14-day, as far as the mowing is concerned, but I didn't catch what it was.
Oh, okay, so previously, we had some of our parks on a 21-day or 30-day mowing cycle. And so Joe and his superintendents have reduced that so that all of our parks are either on a 7-day or a 14-day mowing schedule, so that those parks are mowed more frequently.
Okay, okay, great. I just didn't get to write that down. That's great. And then the last thing, Tracy, on the Meals on Wheels, I was, I knew these numbers had grown, you know, when everything began here with the pandemic, but I guess my concern now is we're not sure, you know, where these numbers are going to go. Hopefully right down, but you never know. How long can we sustain, or do we have a forecast on how long we can sustain? I mean, going from 300 to 1,500 that's a huge jump, and that's wonderful that we're able to do it, because I think we have to do it and we have to figure that out, which we've obviously done. But how long can we sustain these numbers, and what if they go up? What if that 14 to 1,600 a day goes to, you know, 2,100 a day? Do we have a plan for that? Or I just want to make sure we're able to work with the numbers if they go up here moving forward.
Yes, ma'am. As I said, you know, currently we have been fortunate we did receive some funding through the CARES Act. We've also received a grant through CDBG, but I have Kathleen Ramos here. She's going to speak on what we can do going forward to sustain that.
Okay.
Good morning. Kathleen
Morning.
Ramos, Superintendent of Finance and Resource Management for Parks and Recreation. Our original funding sources for our Meals on Wheels and our regular feeding program at the senior centers, they have also been given additional funding for COVID. So we're exhausting that funding first and working with them, and then transitioning to our funding that we have received as a city. So there is potential for this to keep going through the end of next year. I think financially,
Great.
I think we'll be in a good position.
That's wonderful. Okay, great. Thank you. And then Becky, I'm sorry, one last thing for you. I'd like to put just on the radar, and I think either directly or indirectly, we've had a conversation about this, but moving forward, I really would like to sit down, and Peter as well with you, to discuss our baseball parks and the conditions, contracts, and maintenance of those, so that we can make them better than what they are, and just go over just baseball fields in general. I think some of my colleagues here have also engaged in that conversation some time back, but I think it's real important that we need to bring some up to par, and we have the ability, I believe, to have some really good baseball parks here in Corpus Christi. We've kind of let, I think, we've let parks kind of be taken, and I understand the reasoning. They just need to be focused on some, and I'd like to help do that, because those are important to me, as they are to, you know, many children. We're a baseball community. The other one too, and I'm sure that'll be taken care of, I would imagine, in the master plan that we're going to be talking about next week. But, you know, the baseball park at Bill Witt. Baseball is a huge, as Councilman Hernandez mentioned, you know, so is swimming, so is tennis. Everything's important, but baseball this is a hometown for baseball. So I really, really do want to focus on that moving forward.
We agree with you. That is a very important aspect for Corpus Christi, and that is something that we would like to see also.
Great. Thank you, Becky.
Can I add to that, Councilwoman, that several of the
Sure.
baseball fields have a contract on them from a private
Right.
operator.
Right.
And coincidentally, many of those are coming to a term, so we have to re-bid. And
Right.
so this gives us a good opportunity. I've already engaged Michael Rodriguez, who's currently overseeing parks, to not just do an update RFP, but rather look at the model and put a different type of RFP out than what we've done in the past.
Okay.
That's more beneficial to the city and the community, so that's
Right.
in the works right now.
Right. I appreciate that. And yes, that's, yeah, those contracts are extremely outdated and very old. Thank you.
I don't see any more, see any more lights. Anybody out in the cloud got a question? Greg is?
Yeah, I'm trying to work this stuff. Do we have anything in the budget for Parker Pool with it, our poor little orphan pool in Flower Bluff, even though it's a short course Olympic?
We do have so the county operates that pool, but we do have a funding agreement to provide them with dollars that they would have collected if we had a fee still. You know, in this current year budget, we eliminated any admission fees to the pools. And so we're helping Parker Pool out. I forget the total dollar amount, but it's a 3-year step down. So there's a certain amount this year, a little bit less next year. 2022, 2023 would be the final year, and then they would be able to accommodate operating it by then.
Currently 22,000 for this year, and like, as you said, it's a step down from that
Yeah.
each year.
Do we know what the step down is?
You guys have it here with you this morning? I can't give you a correct figure on it. Okay, Councilman, we'll get you that. We don't have it here
Okay.
with us this morning, but yes, sir. We made that commitment to them last year that we would do that.
Yeah, and to Councilman Hernandez's point, how important pools are, and here we've got a pool out there that we got a pool for $22,000, and my concern is that pool is struggling. COVID took a hard hit on it this year. The county and their generosity helped out a little bit with it, but I would hate to see that pool go away on there because they can't charge entrances anymore on there because we are being just too frugal with it. So in the step down portion, we're asking them operate your pool with very limited chances for revenue, and we have a good chance that we may just drive that pool dry.
Yeah, Councilman, so when we made this recommendation in the current year budget, it almost cost us money to collect that money. So the admission fees were almost a token gesture of pretending to collect money, because by the time you pay for the staff that had to collect the money, the armored car service.
Sure. I fully understand that, but and support that. But in Parker's case, it was an important revenue source for them, and they didn't have the overheads that the city has with it. So I guess the point I'm making that we may end up not having a pool out there because of some changes that we made on there, and I'd hate to see that happen.
Yeah, no, I would, you know, when I learned that I had just started, I guess, I guess a year prior, that pool had been negotiated to be operated by the county, and I understand the background where it probably would have closed had we not done that.
Yeah.
But if there's ever an opportunity for the city to take it over, I'd be willing to put together a business proposal for the council.
Peter, it had been closed for a few years.
Okay, yeah, but I'd be
No,
willing to
it's been back open. This is the third year that's been back open, operated really by community support.
Right. Actually, Greg, I was part of that helped bringing that back on with a nonprofit organization, because we used the swim team that I was a part of with my older son, used that pool when they brought it back up. So I'm familiar with it, but it had been closed for a few years before that.
That's right. And the county, for people out there, the county paid for the capital improvements on there. The pool was in dire need of repair. That's what it was closed. The county funded that. Thank you, Nueces County, for doing it. But the actual operations is taking place by a 501c3, which I've been deeply involved with too on it. But you know, they struggle every year to keep the doors open to that pool And it's a very important part of the Flower Bluff community. It's got a fair amount of use with it too. But again, they closed, they followed the beach closure this year with it. The pool was active, but they lost a lot of revenue from swim lessons and parties that they traditionally have. But that's my comments on Parker. Now, we're making progress with the splash pads. So what are we seeing to date as we're moving? We've got the 3 splash pads that we're authorized, and we've been talking about more. So what have we seen so far on splash pads?
Yeah, come on up.
Joe Johnson, Assistant Director of Park and Beach Operations. The splash pads have been completed. The last one was Bill Witt. It was completed, I believe, June 19th, and they've been a huge hit. The communities have really loved them. I've received some messages from friends of mine who are in the Coast Guard that are stationed here that I was stationed with years ago. They've told me how much their kids are loving them. We're getting lots of positive feedback on Facebook. Lisa Oliver, she does our communications. She sends me a lot of the messages that we get. Hopefully next week we've got the artificial turf going to council. We had a small hiccup with the contracting nomenclature, but we got that fixed up. And you guys will see that next week and be voted on so we can put some artificial turf surrounding the splash pads. What that's going to do is it's going to lower the maintenance, because right now we're going to have to mow and weed eat and blow, and that stuff's going to get into the filtration systems, and it's going to cause excess maintenance. I'm hoping that the artificial turf will alleviate a lot of that. And it'll just be nice for people to come out and put a blanket down and picnic on. It's been a great project. The contractor that we hired has been amazing. Any small issues we have with maintenance, they're on the phone walking us through it, or they get in their car and drive here and they fix it for us. It's been an overall great project.
Okay.
I hope to do more in the future.
That is great news on there, and thank you for all you've done. And I know the community has been wanting splash pads for a year, so it's such great news to hear that we spent money, and importantly that our citizens are enjoying it and using it on there. And I guess what I understand, you're kind of just working out the kinks maintenance-wise, so 10, 20 years from now, these splash pads will still be up and going and cooling people down and all the fun things that come along with them.
Yes, sir.
Okay. My last question is about Sherrill Park and the shade structure. So we've done some. Where are we on shade at Sherrill? We've had to cancel all the veterans ceremonies, but they're going to be coming up. So again, where are we on shade at Sherrill Park?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I actually had a meeting this week on that. The sign and seal by Janak has been completed, and we've got that over at engineering. I sent the project rendering and the design to the Type A board for them to review, and hopefully we can get the funding to approval to move forward with the construction.
And it's in the budget. It's in this budget. We've got the money.
Okay, we'll look at that, Kathleen, when we get back to the office. But it was supposed to be community enrichment, and I think those funds have been redirected. But we'll look into it and get you an answer on that. The OPCC
okay, so
is
in this budget conversation, we're undetermined then on that project.
I'm sorry, what was your question?
I guess in this budget process we're in right now, we have not allocated the funds for that shade structure.
No, sir, not in this budget. The design was allocated and paid for, which was it was a little under 12 grand for that. But we are going to try to get the funding to do the construction from the Type A funds for the seawall.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else have any comment?
Did we leave that?
Okay, are you,
We're done.
you're completed with your presentation?
We are complete, yes, sir.
All right, just one clarification, and it may have just been, my ears didn't hear properly, but at one point about the Cove Park Pier I thought I heard a completion date of sometime in 21, and then somewhere in the conversation, I heard a completion date of 22.
No, yeah, 22, so 21 is the date, next summer, 21,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I thought that was what I heard, but then
Yeah.
somewhere 22 came up, and I kind of caught me.
Yeah, no, we'll be a year open at that point.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
super.
Quick question, Mayor, if I may.
Yeah.
Peter, I'd like to, we're talking about Sherrill Park. Right prior to, the I'm sorry, hold on.
Told you.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I have a 15-year-old. Oh, God. Okay, so we had Cheryl, we at the park, of course, and I had been working with staff and with the veterans group regarding the not the name change, but the dedication. So there was apparently it'd been a long time, and we couldn't get the name changed, amended, if you will, to the park. And it was Sherrill Veterans Memorial Park. We got that done, and then COVID came, hit. And Joe, I'm very grateful to you and all you did to help me with getting that sign out there. We had it covered and never were able to really unveil because of the pandemic. So what I'd like to request formally is, on behalf of the veterans group, and the roundtable is who I'm referring to, that we have an appropriate and respectful unveiling of that sign there at Sherrill, or what's now Sherrill Veterans Memorial Park, because they've been waiting so long for this. And like I said, I'd worked on it for quite some time. And again, I realize things go by the wayside with a pandemic like this, but please, Joe, if we can please put that on a future, on a calendar for when we are able to do that in respect to that.
So yes, Councilwoman,
Because
we
the
will make.
sign is there, and it's a beautiful sign.
Councilwoman, we will make sure that that happens.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you very much, and we'll go to libraries, I guess, next.
Mayor, could I ask one quick question, please?
Sure.
This is Michael. I have a question on the USS Corpus Christi sail that was supposed to go up on the bayfront. And we've been on and off on this subject for the last 4 to 5 years. I just want to know what our status is.
Corpus Christi, can you repeat the Corpus Christi sale part, Councilman?
The USS City of Corpus Christi is the submarine that is named after this city, and it is a nuclear submarine, and the sail is the part that comes out of the water. That was supposed to be positioned near Sherrill Veterans Park as a monument to the submarine and the service to our military on our bayfront. And the last we heard was 2 to 3 years ago, that was going to cost us $250,000 to ship it down here. We haven't really gotten past that point, and I was wondering what the update is.
Yeah, I met with that group actually last month out there at Sherrill Park. They're telling me that that's all false about the delivery fee and that this isn't going to cost the city anything. But the truth of this project is they are years and years away from this. I don't know what the correct term, it's not a sail, Councilman Hernandez, you know the top of the submarine? It is a sail? Okay. So the sail is still attached to the submarine at a Navy base up in New England, where is it, Washington State? So they haven't even detached it yet.
Yes, me and Councilman Molina were sent there to have some sort of commemoration of the subject because it was going to be brought down here in 2 to 4 years. That was the deal.
They're telling me now that it's going to be probably 5 to 6 years. It's going to be a ways away, but they did pick a nice spot. I told them that they needed to hire an architect to give us a nice rendering of what it'll look like and where it'll be. They're going to need to do the windstorm certification, all the engineering, and get that to us so we can see it and get it approved. So we are having discussions. It's not dead in the water. But again, this is years and years away from us seeing anything.
All right, well, that's news to me. Thank you.
All right, library.
Okay, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Unfortunately, I have asthma, and if I cover my nose for too long, or even for a few minutes, I start having some issues, so. Okay, good morning, Mayor, Council members, Laura Garcia, Library Director. I will be presenting the library fiscal year 2021 proposed budget. With me this morning is Senior Management Assistant Gabby Sanchez, who oversees the library budget. Next slide. The library is a quality of life department with our mission being to improve literacy, enhance knowledge, and create a sense of community by making information easily accessible. Next. About our services. Last year, we checked out over 720,000 items. We had over 725,000 visitors. Our 120 public computers were used over 197,000 times. We offered 1,518 youth programs with over 53,000 in attendance. Next slide. Our organization consists of 6 library locations with a managing librarian overseeing the daily operations at each location. Next slide. Our 2020 achievements. First, we completed the CDBG project, which upgraded the network equipment and the public computers at Laura Tama and McDonald Library. Our second achievement is a milestone for us because it's the first time we've been able to take advantage of the E-rate discount program. The library qualifies for a 90% discount, which this year translated to a savings of over $37,825, and it also made it possible for us to install a new circuit. I want to thank Peter Collins and his team, as well as Kim Baker and her team, specifically Elizabeth Rodriguez and Minerva Alvarado, which helped us through this very cumbersome application process. Our third achievement was the increasing of our broadband from 50 megabits to 5,000 megabits. And actually, this was possible because we were able to do achievement 1 and 2. And the fourth achievement shows how library services can impact lives in our community. Through our Success for Life program, 12 individuals have received a high school diploma. The individual you see in this slide, the graduate here, is actually one of our own city employees. Next slide. COVID-19 has significantly impacted our 2020 measures. However, we are also optimistic that as we gradually reopen, the 2020 targets you see before you should be met, if not surpassed. Next slide. We have 4 key services, which are lending materials, promoting literacy, administering enjoyable education and literary programs for all ages, and digital services. We had to close our doors on March the 20th, and we implemented curbside service on March 23rd. As you see also in the other picture there, that was one of our groups that met weekly at the Laura Tama Library for their class. In April, we went to doing that as an interactive virtual program. We have also created virtual programs through our YouTube channel, but we know that it's important to have interaction, so we have been working towards doing interactive programs. We are right now in a pilot program with Bethune Daycare so that we can actually do interactive story times to their children. On May 11th, we opened our doors for computer use by reservation. However, to provide social distancing, we've had to reduce the number of computers that we have available from the 120 to 60. We've been working through other services that we can provide, and we've partnered with the municipal court. Many of their clients do not have the ability to do their court hearings because they lack either the digital devices to do so. So we make arrangements for where they come to the library and they can meet virtually with the judge. We've also created new programs through WebEx and so forth that we are working with, as well as like adult book clubs and so forth that we've been working through. Next slide. Our 2021 proposed budget is $4.7 million. Next slide. Our proposed budget is from the general fund, $4.7 million, with with 98% from the general fund and 2% from fees and fines. Next slide. Our first enhancement is to increase hours of 2 part-time library assistants at Hopkins Library from 18 hours a week to 25 at a cost of $9,149. Next slide. Our second enhancement is to increase the hours of 4 part-time buildings and grounds custodians at Garcia, Hart, Hopkins, and McDonald Libraries from 18 to 25 hours a week at a cost of $17,545. Next slide. Our third enhancement is to increase hours of 6 library aides at Garcia, Hart, Hopkins, Lauritama, and McDonald Libraries from 18 hours to 20 hours a week at a cost of $5,493. And you might be wondering why you don't see Nealon in any of these enhancements. Is because their staff, their part-time staff, are already at those numbers. They've been so for years. We had a retirement, and we broke that position down to where we could offer their part-timers more hours. Next slide. For 2021, the proposed capital budget projects include general improvements at rehabilitation at Nealon, Garcia, Hopkins, and McDonald Libraries at a cost of $568,000, and this is from bond 2018 funds. I stand by for any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Mr. Molina?
Thank you, Mayor. I understand that COVID has had an impact on many many services that the citizens get to enjoy, and the park being one of them. One of the things that I take advantage of myself is the ability to go online to the app and download books, check out books that way. I'm assuming you've seen an increase in that area, and if so, what are we doing moving forward as far as making more features available to our citizens in that aspect?
We did see a 21% increase in our digital services. And one of the things that we had actually done at the beginning of this fiscal year is we had increased, especially the magazines, that had like a 700% increase in the first few months. We did increase to where we went from like 250 magazines to almost 3,000 available. So we're gradually looking at that. The issue with the electronic resources is that, especially like books, ebooks, you might look and see in the catalog, oh, they have 3,000 ebooks. And then tomorrow you might look again and you say, well, why do they now just have 2,500 ebooks? A lot of that is the way that we work with the publisher. For example, I buy one Patterson book, I get 26 checkouts. Unless I buy it again, that's it. And then there's some that you buy it and you keep it indefinitely. So our numbers come up and down. We are working to try to improve some of that. We're looking at other resources available. Hoopla is one of the apps that's extremely popular, and we have allotted $60,000 towards that app. However, it's so popular that we have to put a cap on it. Otherwise, we don't make it through the year with the fundings that we have allotted to that. So that's where we get the complaints like, well, we only are allowing 5 checkouts for that resource. But then we get the complaint, well, I can't even get it. Well, we've had to, on a daily basis, say this is how much is allotted for that day in terms of funding. And so those are some of the things. We will continue to look at, because of, like you say, it's not just us, it's a national thing. The libraries are looking at other ways to offer more digital resources. But I will say that digital resources are much, much higher than like print books and so forth.
Are you, again, with the whole pandemic, the number of people actually showing up to the library, that's gone down?
Yes.
But we're still allowing people into the library.
Yes, for computer uses, we've done where they can come in by reservation for computer use, for copy machine use, which is very needed in the community, believe it or not, and then for reviews of public documents. Now, because of the social distancing, the computer use is hourly. We have allotted some slots they need to call us and make reservations at this time. And so, yes, it's down. We are looking at future gradually bringing in browsing, and we're working towards that. We did get some COVID care funds recently, and so we're purchasing more PPE so that we can actually almost like develop cubicles where we can have more of our computers out. So we are looking at it. The other thing we're doing, we're working through with the contractors and facilities to put sneeze guards all the way around our checkout counters. We've only been able so far to get that done at Lauritama and McDonald. It's the contracting issue to get them and supplies and so forth.
And one last question. Are we offering Wi-Fi at the library?
Yes, and actually, especially at McDonald and Lauritama, in terms of outside the perimeters in the parking lot, you probably have a stronger signal. But it is available at all of our locations on the outside. We will continue to look at ways to, if somebody brings in their own device, but right now we're taking it gradually. And I just want to mention that although it seems that we're rather slow in opening, we are actually one of the only libraries that went to curbside immediately. Most libraries did not start, even like Austin, San Antonio, and so forth, didn't start curbside until about June. And we're, like I said, we've been really trying to do different programs. We did have a make and take program for the summer for the children and even for adults. We're trying to look at different ways to reinvent ourselves during this time period.
We appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other, Mr. Hernandez?
All right, thank you, Mayor. You know, I know that libraries are moving more and more to digital content, and people come to the library to use computers, but I didn't see a lot in terms of budgeting for computer equipment associated with that. I think I only saw two, one for Anita and, I'm sorry, the name of the library escapes me, and then the Central Library of about $48,000. Do you not have like a program to increase the number of computers or internet access at your libraries? I mean, I only saw two budget items for it.
For example, Lauritama and McDonald, we bought 60 new computers, public computers, through the CDBG project.
Okay, so,
And
you're buying them through grants.
Yes, for the most part, we try to deal with grants as we go along. Most of our computers, what we've done is through the years, we've been upgrading them. And at one point, we were leasing our computers. I know IT changed that process. So what we have right now, most of our computers are at least only 2 to 3 years old. And so we do look at that. We could probably do better in that, but what we try to do is go out for grants that either the state or other means provide.
Okay, so I didn't see the reflection of grants in terms of what within the budget, but I mean, if you're using that for that, that's great. Almost want to see it in terms of two different things. You actually have people that would use computers for, actual usage of word processing
Yes,
or
sir.
whatever. But then you also have individuals that are just using it to surf the net and
Yes,
get
sir.
information. You could probably save yourself some money by going to things like Chromebooks or
Yes.
along those lines and kind of separate the usage of it. Just some thoughts there, but like I said, I didn't see it in the budget, but if you're going through grants, that I'd
Yes.
kind of get like
And
an
we-
idea of.
And we have bought like iPads through grants. When we do program, we use those. We do have a few Chromebooks. And also, I forgot to mention that I've reached out to Workforce because through the CDBG grant, we're also buying some laptops. And the purpose for that is for individuals that maybe need to do a virtual job interview and they don't have the capability.
Right.
Or for one of the things that Workforce told me was that they do have individuals that want to participate in virtual job fairs and they don't have the resources. We're just waiting for those laptops to come in. So we are, like I said, looking at it, and for the most part, I guess it's just one of those things we've done for so many years. A lot of what we buy for computer or electronic resources usually comes from grants.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anything else? Anybody else?
A quick comment
Okay.
in regards to the need for laptops, I'd just like to share with everyone, this isn't done, but we're working on it. The Veterans Loaner laptop program that I initiated, we are working on extending that. Obviously, it is for just veterans, but because of the need and the pandemic and the 34,000 CCISD, that's just CCISD students who are going to need devices, and whether it be during school, after school, in the evenings, we're working on expanding that program, not only to veterans, but also to students. So to some of your points, that this will help in providing, the service that's needed. So Laura, I just wanted to bring that up because I know it's not done, but I just wanted you guys to know that, because it's very important, obviously, that we have the services needed under the conditions that we're living in. And this is going to be one way to expand that program to include students.
Yes, and that's what we're looking at. We will be expanding it in that manner. And so again, it will be by reservation. They will have more time. Usually what individuals get with our PCs is an hour and a half. With those with those laptops, they'll have up to 4 hours. And we will be flexible with students if they need more time on those computers, on those laptops. So again, we will continue to see what new services we can implement for the community.
Thank you, Laura.
All right, well, thank you. I don't see any other lights on. Anybody else have any comment?
Mayor, I have one.
All right.
I have a quick question. A while back, I think it was 4 to 5 months ago, we did, I guess, a re-roofing project on one of the libraries. I think it was La Retama.
We're actually, it's in the process right now. That project's just started July, I believe. And so it will take several months, more than 6 months to complete. It will be the replacement of the La Retama roof. And a few months back, what you might have seen was the replacement at the Hopkins Library. We replaced that roof early this year.
And how much did we, I guess not budget, what's the, budget for the roof replacement at the La Retama?
That is
Library?
a 1.8 million cost,
Okay, thank you.
approximately.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
28 million for the roof?
No, 1.8.
Oh,
It's a clay. Yes, and they're using, a lot of it is being reused because a few years back after Harvey, a lot of them had fallen off and they've had to replace them. So a lot of the one section is new clay, so they're going to be reusing a lot of that also.
Actually, the CIP says 2.039 million.
I think it's coming in lower.
It's come in lower?
Yes, it's what it's looking like.
Charles Mendoza, our deputy, has a business process change on making our roof costs come in less. We used to have to do a full-blown design, hire an engineer to tell us how to do the roof, but people know how to replace roofs, so we cut that out, and it's saving literally millions of dollars. We did that at the police department right now with a new roof, and as well at the Latama Library. So those are a lot of savings that you don't see, but we're doing a lot to save the taxpayer money.
Yes, and the good thing is the south side, the gutter had failed about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and we put a temporary patch. And so we've been very concerned that that patch is not going to hold. It held for Harvey, but one of the things is they're working on the south side first, and they reassured me, especially with the things happening in that we may get another storm, hopefully not, but that's why they're working really hard to make sure that that is reinforced and new.
all right, thank you very much. Now, the health district that hadn't been getting very much attention lately.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. Yes, I'm here to talk about the Health District proposed budget. I'm not going to talk about the other word, so, except maybe during the presentation. So, next slide. So what is the mission of the Health District? I think everybody's pretty clear on our mission. It's to prevent diseases and disabilities. It's to promote healthy lifestyle and to protect the health and quality of the environment of all the residents here in Nueces County. And some of the pictures we have depicted are our vaccination, our immunization clinic, also our BSL, our biological safety laboratory. Health education is key in public health, as well as environmental health, and we'll talk more about environmental health. So, next slide. So a little bit about public health. Who am I? Annette Rodriguez. I'm the director of the health department. I have with me my assistant director, Dr. Gonzalez, and our public health staff is just a great group of individuals that have been working hard every day during this pandemic. So you see here in the middle our public health emblem, which is prevent, protect, and promote. Again, this is a national emblem for public health, preventing diseases and deaths, protecting the quality of life for our community, and promoting healthy lifestyles. So we do have an interlocal agreement between the city and the county that makes us a city-county health district. And we have Dr. Ram, who is our local health authority. He's new this year, and now he is the new expert for COVID-19. Next slide. So the organization, what does the organizational chart look like? It looks probably very different from all the other charts that you have seen over the last couple of weeks and that you will see next week. Our organizational chart has different colors. If you look at the blue, that's indicative of a city general fund employee. If you look at the red, that's indicative of a county general fund employee paid. If you look at the green, that is a city grant funded employee. If you look at the purple, that is a county grant-funded employee or a program. So you see all the multiple colors here because some positions, like myself and my assistant, are 60-40. Dr. Ram is paid 50-50 between the city and the county. Dr. Onafrak, who is also the alternate health authority, thank you to Dr. Onafrak for all the work she's been doing during this pandemic, is a city-paid position. We also have a pharmacist, Dr. Opat, who is partially paid by the city and partially paid by the county. And we have a pathologist that we have to have for our lab. Any high complexity CLIA lab needs to have a pathologist to meet federal guidelines, and that's Dr. Simonson. So we're divided into different subsets of protection, promotion, and prevention. We also have our 1115 waiver that is a county funded program, and they do wellness initiatives, and they also have the BOD pod. So, next slide. The achievements for 2020, we've responded to the 2019 SARS-CoV-19 pandemic very efficiently. I'd like to say we've educated the community as many as we've been able to. We've trained our public health staff on COVID-19 CDC guidelines back in February of 2020. We sent out COVID-19 guidance documents early on to the emergency management staff, to city staff, nursing homes, funeral homes, and others to prepare for the virus. Achievement 2 is we've conducted over 5,000 COVID-19 tests. In addition, we've also reported over 17,000 COVID positive cases. Achievement 3 is we've applied and received for over $2 million in additional new grant funds to escalate our response to COVID-19. And Achievement 4 is responding to the needs of the community throughout the public health emergency preparedness during a Hurricane Hannah and maintaining COVID-19 testing and contact tracing throughout the recovery phase. Next slide. So our performance measures. So I said we trained staff in early February. We had our first COVID positive in March, and we closed our facility prior to having our first COVID positive case in early March. And so a lot of these numbers are going to look like they've been negatively affected by COVID-19, but we've also accomplished so much more this year. So for environmental complaints, you can see that in 2019, 70,000 complaints. This year, 35,000. The target looks like 30,000 because we know that we're still going to be in COVID mode. But we have responded to over 52,000 COVID calls. For tuberculosis prevention and screening, in 2019, we had 12 cases of TB. This year, we do calendar years. This year, we've had 4 cases. We also have latent TB that we've contend with and we deal with, people that continue to have problems with tuberculosis. Last year, 32. This year, 21. So what we're looking at here is employment required screening. We're looking at school, college, clinical rotation screening, as well as jail and immigration screening for tuberculosis. In 2019, over 39,000. For this year, 35,000. And for next year, our target is around 25,000. For vital statistics, birth and death records, we have about 6,000 births every year, and we have about 3,000 deaths every year. The number of births and death records given out was 24,000 last year. This year, it's been 5,645. Next year, we're hoping that those numbers will go back and rebound after COVID-19 to at least 10,000, if not more. For health education, again, this is key for public health. And last year, we educated over 4,462. If you look at those measures this year, it looks like 271, but that's because we're not counting any of our COVID efforts. So, and for next year, for health education, going back into the schools and doing the education that they normally do, 2,500. Immunizations, this is for school and travel-related immunizations. Provider compliance reviews, drive-through testing, last year 5,000. This year, 2,500 because of COVID. Next year, 2,000. Next slide. So the public health services that we offer are enforcing health and safety codes. And the way we do that is we have our environmental inspectors. So we have a limited number of inspectors. We only have 7, to be honest. These inspectors, they do restaurant inspections. They do septic system inspections, swimming pool inspections, food handler classes. They do certificate of occupancy. They also do complaints, smoking complaints. So they're very busy and they do a great job. Currently, they're also doing retail for COVID-19 to make sure that the retail has an understanding of social distancing, wearing a mask, etc. We also have disease intervention specialists. We have public health emergency preparedness. We have a group of employees that just specialize in that. Vaccine preventables. We also have a strategic national stockpile / medical reserve corps that we oversee. I want to talk a little bit more about the strategic national stockpile because this one is very important. Anytime you have a pandemic, you deal with it, the SNS. That's what we call it, the strategic national stockpile. And this is when they actually, if they come up with an antimicrobial or they come up with an antiviral medication for the pandemic, then they ship in shipments of medications to us. And so we have in our plans, we already know where these shipments come to. We don't tell anybody where that's at, and that's just for safety purposes. They come in. They usually come in, DPS will bring them in to us, and then they'll sign over the chain of custody or authority to us, and then we'll accept them, we'll inventory, and then we'll get them out to the community. These are really important because it's not only for medications, but it's also for vaccines. So vaccines will come in, and then we turn around and we disseminate those vaccines by having mass vaccination clinics for our community. We also provide and manage medical clinics. We have a community health section that provides immunization division, tuberculosis, STD, HIV, and women's health. We have our lab that y'all have heard about, and we have outreach for public information to go out to the schools, smoking cessation programs, diabetes education, and we have patient navigators that help individuals that need resources to tie them together to those needed resources. We have 3 clinics outside of the health district. We have the Robstown Clinic, we have our Horn Road Clinic, and we have our mobile clinic. But WIC also has an outside clinic in Flower Bluff. At one of the libraries, they use a section of that to provide WIC services for the Flower Bluff residents. Next slide. So the health district proposed budget is $12.4 million. So in addition to that, we receive an additional $1 million worth of vaccine from the state, Department of State Health Services. If you look at our county grants and our city grants, that's really the lion's share of the funding that we receive, $4.4 million, 3.1 for a total of $7.5 million, or 60% of the entire pie chart that you see here. If you look at the county general funds, we receive $1.5 million from the county. We receive $3.4 million from the city, for a total of $4.9 from the two general funds. The lion's share is the city's portion. It's currently at 70% this year, and the county's at 30%. Last year, the county's was closer to 40%, because the city actually stopped leasing their computers, and so the county gave us an additional $100,000 so we could buy our computers for our county employees. And so you will see this year that we will be buying those computers for the county side of the health district. You see an additional 1.5 employees. We have a total of 116.5 city and county health district employees. And the reason you see the 1.5, and that's from one of the grants where we brought in some additional individuals to help us with contact tracing. Next slide. The revenues that we bring in, the majority of our revenues come from environmental. They bring in around $600,000 in revenues, and vital statistics brings in around $400,000. Immunizations in the clinics bring in about $120,000, some water testing, but I'm happy to say we have a structurally balanced budget. Next slide. For enhancement number 1, this is $165,000 that we would like to set aside for a comprehensive study. We all know that COVID-19 has actually, highlighted public health and what we do, and also some of the deficits that we have. And so this is to assess not only our infrastructure needs, but also to create a strategic plan for future operational needs for public health. And that would also be a 60-40 split between the city and the county for this study. Next slide. These are for the capital budget projects. These are general improvements needed, general upkeep for our building. Our building is at least 35,000 square feet, and it was built in 1972. And so it's an older building that has a lot of needs. And so that's where we're at. And that concludes my budget presentation. I do want to take a minute, though, to thank all of you and the city manager, Zanoni, county judge, Barbara Canales. I want to thank you all for allowing me to take the leadership role in this pandemic, allowing my assistant director and our public health staff. It's humbling, but also rewarding, because we know that every swab that we do, that every drive-through we conduct, that every person that we call to tell them they're positive, for everyone that we isolate, for every case detected, for everyone that we contact trace and we quarantine, we know that we're that much closer to coming out on the other side of this pandemic. So thank you all. Appreciate that. I hope that when future generations ask us about COVID-19, I hope that we all can say, we wore our mask when we went out in public. We know all about this COVID-19. We social distanced from strangers, and we washed our hands like crazy. But the most important part of this pandemic is that all of us here, all of us in the cloud, all of us at home, that we're here to talk about it because we are COVID-19 survivors. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we, I know one of the, since you have so much extra time on your hands, and your staff does.
Thank you.
Where, obviously, this is a joint venture, but at the same time, we've got the funds, to reimburse us to some extent. Are we getting pretty close to identifying what we can submit to, or basically just the whole budget right in your, our health department pretty much is just dedicated to COVID, right?
That's correct, and we're going to be submitting all of those for reimbursement. So
So-
everything we're doing currently is COVID-19.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of this is gonna be reimbursable, but it's still, you gotta spend it to get it back. They just don't have it sitting out there waiting for you to go pick it up.
That's correct.
Okay, well, that's a blessing.
Definitely is. I agree with that, so.
So, anybody, Mr. Molina? Let me ask for, anybody out in the cloud before I forget them?
Yeah. I do, Joe.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Annette, for the presentation. Last Tuesday, you briefed us on the progress on the vaccine. So 2021 will probably be a year of vaccines and treatments. Currently, I think the CARES Act expires at the end of this year. And in this great work in progress and constantly changing, budget considerations, I know we're going to do what we have to do, but what are your thoughts in this with the vaccine and what the health district, you like the other, you'll probably be the main point on this with it. I know we have no clarity right now, but just working with the budget coming in 2021, where you're going to have just a huge, hopefully, load coming in with the vaccine.
So we did increase our number for flu vaccines. We normally give around 1,000 vaccines, flu vaccines a year. I know it doesn't sound like very much, but maybe 5-6 years ago, public health started moving from what we were considered a public home for many people. For many people, they would get their vaccines from public health. The state changed our mission to say you are not a public home. You have to give resources to individuals so that they can actually get their own primary care physician. So we don't do as many vaccines as we have previously, 10, 15, 20 years ago, but we do about 1,000 flu vaccines. We have ordered additional vaccines. We've ordered close to 4,000 flu vaccines for this year. We also know that the state of Texas is going to be delivering 3 million vaccines, flu vaccines for the state of Texas specifically. So we are pre-booking vaccines for that as well so that we can get vaccines for our population. But we also know that those flu vaccines will not come in until the end of November or December. And we like to get vaccinated early because of everything that's going on with COVID-19. And flu season starts October 1st. So you need to be vaccinated at least 2 weeks prior to flu season so you can actually build some immunity to it. And so we have put additional money. We put in a purchase for those additional flu vaccines, but I will tell you that's over $120,000 for those flu vaccines, and we're on a waiting list. And the reason is because it takes a long time to make flu vaccines. There's a whole process to it, and you order a year in advance. So we don't know that we'll receive what we've actually ordered in addition to our regular 1,500 doses, but we are on a waiting list, and we hope that we get some sooner, and not later. But again, we will be getting additional flu vaccine. The other vaccines that we're anticipating, those normally come to us from CDC to DSHS to us, and so those are normally, there is no charge for those vaccines, and then we turn around and we vaccinate the community.
Thank you, and just keep up the really solid work with that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, Mayor, in regards to vaccines. Annette, this is Paulette. So the total number of the vaccines that have no charge is how many?
So last year, and that's a great question, Councilwoman Guajardo, that's a great question. Last year, we gave 200 And that was part of what we call our ASN. That's an adult safety net vaccine. We have two. We have the adult, and then we have the Texas vaccine for children. But for the adults for flu for last year, for free, we gave 200 flu vaccines last year.
Okay, so the ones you just spoke about, those are the thousands, the 4,000 that that are on order and we're on a waiting list for. That is, those are, I guess, at some cost?
Yes, these vaccines cost us $16. We charge $20 for a vaccine. And so we will continue to charge the $20. That's very low cost, to be honest with you. But we are also going to do the vaccine program through the drive-through. So people do not have to have or feel like they have any type of exposure.
But that's for the $20.
That's for the $20. And for the other ones that are free, we'll do them through the same mechanism, through the drive-through.
And when do those, the free ones, when do those come in, or do you have those, or are those a waiting list?
We have some, we have a few, we have about 100 right now. The ones that are coming in as part of the 3 million that we've ordered, those will come in late November, early December.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? Okay, Mr. Molina?
Thank you, Mayor. Annette, thank you for your hard work, and we appreciate it. I'm not sure if this is a question for you or City Manager Zanoni. In your presentation, you showed us that there are several employees that are being paid through both county and the city. What are some of the challenges associated with that?
Well, that's a great question. Some of the challenges are that they only, they don't see that's on the back end. So if, like, for me, and for instance, I don't see that the county is doing anything for my check. I see a city paycheck. So that's not an issue. And I'm considered really a full-fledged city employee, even though 40% of my salary comes from the county. But where you have issues is like in the grievance processes. So there's not a process between the city and the county where a city employee can grieve a county employee or a county employee can grieve a city employee. Now, a city employee can grieve a city employee all day long, and a county employee can grieve a county employee. So we have that internally where they submit a grievance, and then we kind of take care of that internally to try to take care of and resolve the situation. But it's not a set process or protocol like if you were just city or just county. Some of those issues, we've worked out a lot of these issues with personal leave has been worked out because historically only city employees get personal leave and county employees do not. But if you're a health district county employee, make it a little more complicated, if you're a health district county employee, we have allowed that they also get personal leave as well. So there are some situations, but we really have worked through them and tried to get the city and the county to see both sides of them, and that way that we can have consistency for all our employees at the health district.
And I guess the follow-up to that is that has there been any discussion about employees being paid by one entity only as far as an agreement between the city and county? I know that there's been instances where the county will pay the city or reimburse the city for those expenses, or the city can pay the county, and then your paycheck would come 100% from the county with the city's contribution.
And that's the way it currently is. So our county employees are all paid 100% by the county. Okay. And so they don't see anything that looks like city reimbursement, even though some of them are, but they don't see that in. They just see they're a full-fledged county employee or they're a full-fledged city employee.
Yeah, and what I was talking about is having all the employees
be
come
one
under
or the
one
other
entity instead of being split.
We've talked about it for many years, and with this pandemic, it looks like it works really well to be a city county, to be able to, we don't just oversee Nueces County like the Laboratory Response Network. It oversees 13 counties, so all the way from Victoria, all the way down to Duval County. And so it is helpful to have that dual system. And I think the other parts of it that don't work well, I think we just have to work through all of those and just fix them so they can work well, so we can have this, this comprehensive health district like we currently have.
Yeah, Councilman, let me just add to that, and Annette knows well, because she has been here for many years. The system, one thing we learned with the COVID pandemic is we have great relationship with the county, and so the judge and Judge Canales and Mayor McComb work great with each other, and the leading the entire county's public health. So there was some talk even before the pandemic of going separate ways, but people quickly realized that would be a disaster. So that's one silver lining from the COVID pandemic, is we see the value and the structure that we have, and that can't be said across Texas. There's many dual systems, or the systems where they're supposed to be together, but they can't get along with each other. So we're fortunate in that we have a great working relationship with the county in our health district. Having said that, though, we know there's room for improvement, and we've done some adjustments without much fanfare. We've made salary adjustments to bring certain employees at the same level of pay with the city and the county.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at holiday schedules, because that's another area where the county has a holiday schedule that's different than the city. And then finally, the $165,000 city dollars for this kind of the study of what do we do going forward. Some of that study will include how do we improve the current structure and relationship for a better business setup. So we'll be looking at that in the next coming year and bring some recommendations to council and the court.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Mr. Hernandez?
Thank you. I know this has kind of fallen off by the wayside due to the pandemic, but we had talked about in our last budget cycle, we talked about mental health and the amount that was being transferred in or for MMHR, or I guess that's, I don't know what they're called now. Is it still called MMHR?
MHMR, I do,
Okay.
I do.
They change names occasionally.
Right, yeah. Intellectual disabilities.
Right, and we didn't really change the amount that we were budgeting towards them. Is there a concern there, or, I mean, what's the long-term plan?
There really isn't. Is mental health and intellectual disabilities important? Absolutely. But they are also state-funded. So the lion's share of what they receive comes from different grants. And so we've always given them around $50,000, $40,000 a year. And so we're at the same place that we are, but we also know that they get a lot of other funding from a lot of other sources. And so I have not seen a request for additional funds specifically for them at this time.
I guess I was trying to tie this in because I know our police department comes across this quite a bit in dealing with the public, and they come across mental health issues. And I don't know if we could tie it into that somehow, or what synergies we have there with our police department to address those. I mean, that also goes along with our homeless population, which many of them will have health issues. It just seems like there's not a lot of attention paid to it, other than just here at MMHR, we'll give you a couple of bucks.
Right.
And I don't know how that reflects on, our health department, because we do have that organization. But if you could kind of give me some ideas as to what your thoughts are on that.
Well, there are a lot of emotional needs right now, especially during this time. And so that's a great point. But we always know that they're there. They're actually our backdoor neighbors. We used to ride over to them in our bikes at lunchtime for some exercise. So we know where they're at. They're always available to help us with counseling. It's really a lot of it, I'm thinking about our employees, our staff that have to listen to a lot of these very tragic stories, as well as for hospitals. Everybody can use mental health counseling. And so thank you for bringing that out. I definitely will reach out to them and see if there's some type of connection that we can make, if we ever needed them. And we've actually trained some of our own staff to do this in-house, to be able to talk to other staff members when you have an event like this. But we definitely look to them as the experts And I agree with you, police department always has individuals that they need, some assistance with. But I think they do the same thing as we do. When they need that, they call them up and they're available for them. But there should be a better process for that, so that way we have that cohesive, transition.
Yeah, I mean, if this funding is just there for just to support, and maybe we could put something attached to it to support our requirements with the police department or our fire department that have to deal with these individuals. I just, maybe some accountability for that funding. The second question I have has to do with the health Medicaid 1115 waiver fund. There's about $1.2 million there, but there's really no expenditures associated with that. There's just the revenue amount. What is this for, and are you planning to spend it on something? I mean, what,
This
or is
is
it just sitting there?
Oh, okay, that's the $1.2 million. That was actually funds that we received. We had a childhood obesity grant at one time with the city with the 1115 waiver funds. And we had an 1115 waiver funds with the county. And so we actually earned those funds because you would meet your metrics and then they would pay you for that. And so those 1.2 million, 165,000 is for that enhancement for that project to be able to do that comprehensive study on the public health district. And then the difference is an RFP that we've been looking at for a wellness initiative that we talked about last year, for actually doing something on our beautiful bayfront and getting people to get healthier and to exercise. So we've still been trying to get that RFP moving even through COVID. And
Okay, so you're not actually planning to spend any this year, because there's nothing on there for expenditures.
Yeah, we are planning on something probably in fiscal year, probably after October, fiscal year 2021.
Okay, maybe we,
Eddie, want to add to that?
I thought we had.
197 there, I think is where the summary is. The expenditure on the detail got cut off of the detail, but it is appropriated. The $1,198,000, if you look on that.
Budget book, Eddie?
Yes.
on 197?
I think the special revenue summary page.
Take this whole thing if you need to. Eddie's checking on the budget book.
Check on that.
Okay, I was just looking at the actual page, and there's no expenditures tied to it, so.
137, I'm sorry, 137.
37?
Right about midway down on the expenditures is the Health Medicaid 1115 waiver, where we had budgeted a little over $1 million this year, and due to the COVID pandemic, weren't able to complete. And so next year, we're budgeting the $1,198,000. It got cut off of the other page over there that you looked at, but it is will be appropriated with the proposed budget.
Okay,
Or what Annette
could
said.
you
The
update
one.
this page then, please?
Yeah, yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Gardner?
Thanks, Eddie.
First off, Annette, thank you very much for what you do for the community and what you all have done to help me personally with my own family member. And the work that you do is greatly appreciated, really is.
You're welcome.
Secondly, the vaccines. I kind of look at things from a production planning standpoint because I come from a manufacturing background. And I'm concerned that this fall is going to create some huge, I guess, difficulty and challenges related to how we manage people that have COVID-19 or get infected with COVID-19 and possibly have a touch of the flu or have the flu. In previous years, I mean, it's been easy to go and get a flu shot. And so it may be critical to try to get the message out or the education out for folks that as soon as a new flu comes available, which you're talking about maybe mid-September, those that even if they would want to wait and get the flu for free or get it for at $20 or whatever it is, it may be greatly beneficial to them and the community for them to go ahead and use their healthcare provider or their copay and pay the additional $5 or $15 or whatever it is to get it out of the way and done early, because to me, the healthcare professionals are going to be taxed trying to administer the flu vaccine, and then later, if the COVID-19 vaccine becomes available, if they're trying to administer one or the other or both at a given time, it's going to be somewhat difficult. What are your thoughts, and how should we plan to address that issue?
You know, I agree with you completely. Everybody that normally gets the flu vaccine should continue this year to get that flu vaccine from whatever source they normally get their vaccine from. The other important part to look at is that flu travels, you know, so we normally see it start up north, the northern states, and then we see it travel. But we know we live in a very fluid society where people can just get here in a hop and a skip. And so, yes, you have to kind of be paying attention to what's going on. What we do is we do what we call syndromic surveillance. And so what we do is we actually watch the pediatric offices. We have a relationship with them, and they know that the first case that they think is a flu case, and it normally starts with the kiddos, and we all know why. The kiddos love to touch everything. So they touch everything, so they pick up the flu first, the pediatric population. So as soon as we see that, we actually test it at our health department in our laboratory. Very fortunate to have that LRN. And so we know that flu's here. And then we also know if it's type A or if it's type B. But again, everybody should be getting vaccinated, just exactly for the reason that you said. You don't want any confusion. If I'm in the hospital, I don't want them to be confused between, does she have the flu or does she have COVID? You know, time is of the essence. I want to say I had the flu shot, think of it as COVID, you know, treat me. And so I want that for the whole community. I want them to know that they've got their flu shot. And so the only thing that we're concerned about during the flu season, back to school season, would be the COVID-19. So as many people as possible need to get vaccinated. Like you said, they can go to CVS, they can go to HEB. There's a lot of different places that you can be vaccinated. It's not only the health department. In fact, we probably give one of the least amounts. We give 1,000 a year. And we are expected to give more, and I'm glad you said that, because I don't want people to wait till December. If it doesn't get here till December, I don't want anybody waiting. I want them to be have antibodies against the flu early during the flu season.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Anyone else have any comments?
I do, Mayor.
Okay.
This is Paulette. Annette, let's see, where was I here? Well, first of all, I want to go back to the comments that Peter made in regards to the city and the county working together. I think our team has done a great job in doing that. And I've heard that from, you know, more than one time. So that's extremely important because we do work hand in hand, and I've seen that. So thank you to the team, whoever that may consist of, in terms of working throughout this whole ordeal, pandemic, from the get-go, together as one, united. So I think we're doing a great job in that aspect. I just want to wanted to reiterate that. Second thing, I just wanted to go back, Councilman Hernandez mentioned, we were talking about MHID, which was MHMR prior, and I just want to let you know that we did, we just upped the amount that we do contribute to them to 50,000 here recently. That probably happened around the time Peter came on, I think it was. So we did, it was significantly lower. And so that, and I believe that was something the council, that came before council back then, but I just wanted you to know that, Councilman Hernandez, because that's very important. And that was an initiative that I took on. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because your points are valid and they're absolutely right. We all have to work together for this particular issue of mental health. And the contribution that we were giving MHID was not enough, in my opinion, and obviously the council felt the same at the time. So we did increase that amount to help them. And so I know that they're very grateful, and they actually just reached out to me recently regarding that. So I think moving forward, continuing to work together and looking for funds where we can help them or they can acquire elsewhere is extremely important, as is, Annette, you mentioned the police department. They've got their CIP unit that's also working with that sector of people. And so it's not on a grand scale, but it is. But we are doing it. So I'm really proud of the efforts. Obviously, we need to continue and expand that. But point is well made, Councilman Hernandez. So I just wanted to bring that up so everybody knew that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Councilman Guajardo, I think the amount is 64,000 in this budget.
Well, but I think the contribution, we give 50. I'm not sure what the rest of it is, but
Eddie, can you,
Yeah.
or can you clarify that? Is it 64,000 that we're giving to them?
Correct. It went from 54,000 to 64,000
Okay.
in fiscal year 20, and it remained at 64,000 for fiscal year 21.
Thank you.
okay, my mistake. I was thinking it was 50. Pardon my error, but yeah, that's wonderful though.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other comments? All right, that ought to wrap up our presentation on this part of the budget. Mr. Manager, you have any closing comments or thoughts?
No, those are three important departments for our city, and you can see each one of them is making improvements, and we look for the new fiscal year to come and even additional improvements in the business processes as well as the facilities and the maintenance and the outreach to the community, specifically in our public health.
All right, well, that's the conclusion of our meeting. We will stand adjourned.